It is 6:01, so I'd like to call the meeting for the Planning and Zoning Commission for Tuesday, December 14th to order. Appears we have all the commissioners in attendance. So now let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have citizens' comment period. Do we have anybody signed up? Okay, we do not. Let's move right along to business items. Approval of minutes for November 9th for our regular meeting. Did anyone notify Marissa of any changes or edits? No? May I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? They're approved. Moving to item B, items applicable to planning and zoning discussed at the December City Council meeting. I think we'll go ahead and start with Karim to give the report since he was the one that attended.
Thank you, Chair. The update is the petition from Eric Thomas Fisher and Mary Fisher for the rezoning. That was approved by City Council. And then going on to the next items for the variances from J.D. Lee Dudley on behalf of Quick Trip. Those variances all all variances were denied, and other than that, I have nothing, no other report to give.
Okay, so all the variances were denied, and then the master plan?
And the master plan, that's
was
correct.
also denied.
Yes, I
Okay.
apologize for that. And the master plan for the QT was also denied,
Okay.
based on the
The variances
variances.
being denied. Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or comments that we might?
I have a comment.
Okay,
Commissioner Jackman took some heat because we came behind and approved the master plan after City Council felt that none of the things should pass. And my comment was, we didn't turn down all of them. So to me, the master plan was a separate and distinct consideration. I'm sure QT thought the master plan was, as they submitted, was all right. And when I looked at it, I said, the master plan was all right, just the variances wasn't all right. And I had them separate and distinct. City Council felt otherwise, and Commissioner Jackman took some heat for it, which I thought wasn't fair because he was just passing on what we as a group had voted on more than anything else. It wasn't his opinion, it was our opinion.
well, and to reiterate, the commission actually passed every variance except for one. But I don't know that we should have done that. Thank goodness I don't get to vote. No, actually, I wish I could, but I hear what you're saying. So,
Offline, I had a chance to talk with the city administrator who's done this for many more years than we have. And it made me wonder, are we missing something, or we're not voting or considering things the way we should consider them? Maybe we're too, I felt, the message I got was we're way too lenient. Okay, we should be stricter with the variances down the line, whereas the way I looked at it was I considered each one, and the first thing I thought was, okay, from the information I got from my neighborhood, and I think that was our role, is to represent what we gathered from our neighbors and citizens of Garden Ridge, and we bring that back to planning and zoning, and then that piggybacks on whatever the city council gathers as elected officials from the citizens, and that increases the sample size, so to speak. And the message I got from my neighborhood, the front part of the neighborhood, right, did not want it. But that's the people that are up close. From the rest of the neighborhood, I can't say overwhelmingly was for it, but I had the opportunity to have we call it a neighborhood festival every year. And I must have talked about 25, 30 people. And overall, they thought it was a good idea. If we were going to have a gas station there, QT would be one we'd want. Now, the question that I came up with was, okay, do we want a gas station there, yes or no? If we don't want a gas station, then proceed along those lines. If we wanted a gas station, then I considered it my job to see if I could make it work, because we'd like to have QT there around the variances. The only variance I really had any problem with was the water tower thing. And I thought QT did a good job of explaining themselves at the city council meeting and what that was all about. Turns out it's pretty much arbitrary. That's the message I got. Some places it's 50 feet, some places it's 150 feet. Nowhere is it 1,500 feet.
It is in Garden Ridge.
It's at Garden Ridge. And so I felt that, okay, it's not arbitrary, but there's some leeway there. The other things I had problems with were all things that could be solved and taken care of by QT if they were really interested in putting that gas station there. And so I felt I left out of city council a little disappointed that we blew it, so to speak. But by the same token, I said, well, the ball's in their court. If they want to put a gas station there, they have a good guideline for what they need to do to come back before us and see if those remedies are there.
Okay, well, I'd like to make a comment. We have to understand what our job is as the commission, okay? And it's not necessarily to please all the citizens, although we have to take their comments into consideration. Our job is to look at what is being presented by a developer and how many variances they submit also plays into it, because especially when we get the new ordinance done, our job is going to be even harder, because hopefully we're taking enough time with the new draft ordinance to alleviate the request of so many variances. It is our job to make the tough decisions going and then presenting those to city council. Not just say, oh, well, let's let city council make the decision. Okay, I was real disappointed at that, but, you know, we have voting members, and, but I just think that you need to understand what your job is. And so I was not surprised at what happened at city council, and I just have to say something. You did a fabulous job, Mayor. Man, you really, his presentation, okay, he's not giving me a lot. Your presentation left no room for other than what happened. Okay, so again, I think maybe what I need to do is take a page from that playbook and try to influence where I think there needs to be some, reining in or whatever. But yeah, I think everybody should have learned a big lesson from that. Did you watch it online? Yeah, I know that you were there, you were there, you were there, and you were there. I was online live, but you could have also gone back and watched it. So, yeah, but that's all I have to say. We have a tough job, and but it's one that we need to take seriously, and I think we've learned a lesson. So, does anybody else have anything to say? No? Then I'd like to turn it over to the mayor for comments, his comments.
We live? Okay, thanks. Planning and zoning. Thank you, Chairman Diaz, for your comments and your words. Thank you, Dr. Miller, for your comments and your words, and thank you for all of you watching, either online or recorded, and especially for those of you that were able to attend that night. Thank you so much for being there. We all have tough jobs. The first thing I want to do is say thank you to all of you, because without your hard work, the council can't do its hard work. And you guys, we're all volunteers, but you guys are volunteers. You say, you know, I'm a resident of Garden Ridge. Todd, you're one of the newest residents here, right? And after we talked, what was that, last February or March? And then you volunteered, you know, talking about volunteerism and whatnot. And next thing I know, you're dropping a resume to planning and zoning, and then you're appointed to it. And I'm proud of all of you for stepping up and doing that and deciding to serve your community. You come up with a resume, you get interviewed, and then the council, the commission votes on it, then the council has to vote on it. It's harder than an election. So thank you for what you do, especially for your volunteerism. And you have a tough job. So a city has the city council and the city staff. City staff runs the day-to-day operations, does planning and whatnot. The council is there to, as elected officials, to make some the overall decisions. And then there are commissions and committees, but in this case, commissions that are established to do the hard work and to do the homework so that you can make and provide recommendations to the city council on what you think should happen based on requests out there and where the city needs to go. And you have a very, very, very tough job of doing the hard work to make recommendations to the council. And I applaud you to that. And I have to say that my comments at the end of the voting were not meant to you in any way, shape, or form. And they were not meant to any of you as commissioners. My point in that was to make a point that it was a little bit confusing to myself and the council members about the message we were trying to send there, how that could be a factor. So let me address that individually. I know there was a comment about, hey, what do we want to have there? Do we want a gas station there? What kind of business do we want there? That's not our job. That's not up to us. Our job is to look at the master land use plan that we developed in 2017 with a lot of members that are in the audience tonight, members of council, members of city staff, residents, business owners, and we came up with that plan over about 9 months in 2017, starting in April and May of 2017, to talk about what we wanted as a community to go there. And what we came up with and approved it later on that year was we took a survey too, and we want to keep Garden Ridge that rural small town feeling, yet develop commercially responsibly through that area, but keep that rural feeling and keep us away from being another part of Shirts. As you drive over the flyover, going up 3009 to go to QT or HEB, you don't have to go far to get out of Garden Ridge, and you're in the industrial part of Shirts. And we're trying to not have that and develop responsibly with that master land use plan. A couple things from that plan. 42.5% said preserving that small town feel, which is it's not half, but it's significant considering how many people responded. 58.3% believe that growth outside of Garden Ridge is an issue and a threat to the city. They want to develop, yet maintain that small town feel. And that was all of us that were here at the time that responded to that survey. So when I introduced that after the public hearing was done and talked to the council about that, we talked about what the master land use plan said and what our ordinance currently says, and also what our proposed ordinance with respect to these variances that came forward is most likely going to say. And we needed to make sure that we dealt just strictly with the 2.36 acres that QT was requesting to buy from the property owner and what variances were required for that tract of land, not the overall 13 acres of that development, which is going to be beautiful, I have no doubt in my mind, through hard work of the property owner, developers that want to come in, and this commission. So when we looked at that, we had 4 variances, requests for variances to your ordinance that you currently have, that's yours, and also what you're developing for the proposed draft to the ordinance to change some things. We had to look specifically at those 4 variances, and 4 variances coming forward is a lot. That's a lot for a development to bring in. Let's talk about the signage ones. So the signage, this commission passed both signage variances 3-2. And okay, great. But it wouldn't have taken much, in my opinion, to give some feedback to QT in this case to say, hey, 4 variances is quite a lot. We actually did give them that feedback. And it won't take much for you to modify your request for signage in order to limit the number of variances coming forward, even though there's 2 that are pretty large. But that's a development type of thing that they needed to look into. So no, we're not trying to be Shirts. We're not trying to be San Antonio. We're trying to separate ourselves from there, and signage is one of the ways that we do that through your ordinance that has been worked hard on for years and years. So that was a little bit confusing to myself. I won't speak for the council, but I think the votes for those, for both of them, one was 5-0, another one was 4-1. So to deny those variances. So let's talk about the impervious cover one. That was, right now our impervious cover ordinance says, hey, no more than 33.3%, a third. Our draft is even going to 65, where it's at right now. But right now, it's 33.3%. So for us to come forward and say, for that variance to come forward and say, hey, 88.8% of that 2.36 acres is going to be impervious cover, that's a big variance request. And what message does that send to Garden Ridge, to other developers and property owners, if we were willing to approve a variance of a request of nearly 25% more, 88.8%, I mean, that's 24.8%, or 23.8% above what we might have, 65%. So that's a lot. And what message does that send to developers? It really, if we approve that, then anything less than 88%, we don't have a leg to stand on, whether it's a gas station or some other type of commercial development. We don't. And even in the litigation, if someone chose to take us to court and litigate it, our precedence has already been set. So why would we even have that in our ordinance? So that's something we got to think about. What is that limit? Tonight, I think you're going to hear it's maybe around 80% from Bryce, who's going to talk to us here in a little while. That may be the case. And maybe it goes to 80%. And I don't know how the council's going to feel about that. And I won't speculate how you guys are going to feel about that. But it's something that we're going to have to think about. Let's talk about the 1,500-foot aquifer variance. So 1,500 feet. TCEQ is 150 feet, right? Okay. TCEQ is not worried about where QT was going to put its gas tanks. TCEQ was also not worried about where Vulcan was going to put their quarry, which still proposed out there. They weren't worried about that at all. So we are 10 times that. The other agencies in Texas could go up to like 250 feet, okay? We're 1,500 feet. Why is that there? Well, why is there already a Shell station there? Well, the Shell station is there because it was built in 1975. And that was before, we were a city, we were incorporated, but it was before we had an ordinance that would say 1,500 feet for those tanks. So in order to preserve that small town and rural feel, commissioners well prior to you and council members well prior to us passed that variance to say, no, it's 1,500 feet. Because, yep, there's already a Shell there, but that's not what we want, a gas station on every corner, if you will. I'm exaggerating there, but that's not what we want. So what is that buffer zone? Hey, 1,500 feet from a city well. So, and it stood the test of time, and it's been there for a long time. Now, for us as a city to say, you know what, 803 feet is just fine. Well, then that 1,500-foot buffer that we have for aquifer from a city well, aquifer preservation from a city well, goes out the window. We don't stand a chance of holding up in litigation with that. We don't stand a chance of telling a developer no, or property owner, hey, no, that's not in accordance with our master land use plan, and it's not in accordance with our ordinance. So I think that addresses where I was coming from as a mayor of the city as the mayor of the city of Garden Ridge. That's what I said to council before we took it up to discuss and either approve those variances or deny them. So that's where we were coming from. And to go one further to answer the question that you were talking about, Dr. Miller, that was, hey, we recommend approval of the master land use plan if the council overturns our motion to deny that 4-1, which would require the council, a supermajority. We'd have to overturn your decision 4-1 in favor of granting that ordinance of 803 feet, the variance of 803 feet. So that was the confusion and the point that I was trying to make that evening. And again, no offense, God no, no offense was meant. That's where I was coming from as a mayor. I think the votes of 5-0, 5-0, 4-1, 4-1 from the city council echo my thoughts on that. And again, you have a very tough job, but we rely on each and every one of you to do the hard work to make recommendations to us as a commission of what you think is best for the city of Garden Ridge. Not what you think personally should go on that corner to attract business and attract customers. Something's going to go there. Mr. Oberman's going to come up with an awesome plan, and it's going to be glorious, and we're going to spend a lot of time there. Would I have used QT right there on that corner? You bet. I'd have stopped there tonight, gotten a quick sandwich and filled up with gas, and then gone home, changed, and come here. But what's best for the city and what's in accordance with our master land use plan, and most of all, what's in accordance with your ordinance. Well, let's go one further. So thank you for what you do. We can't do it without you. It goes for all the commissions and the city staff. And on behalf of the council, I thank you for what you guys do in your tough job. And Karen, I'd open it up to questions. I'm up here already.
For the mayor? Or comments?
I actually have one. It was,
Yes, sir.
when you sit down, would you sit back there with Kay so that you can hear what we don't hear when we sit back there? When we win the publisher's house clearing check comes in, we could use some speakers or something. You can't hear anything back there.
Nothing? Okay. Nancy, Marissa? Take note. I know we've had comments in the last city council meeting of people even halfway back. So not everybody has a loud voice like me, so.
And it's especially challenging when you're listening online. You can't make it any louder, so.
We're going to work on that. That's great feedback for us. Yes, sir.
So, Mayor, thank you for your response tonight and providing some of your thoughts. Very helpful.
Yes, sir.
I'm new to the process, quite frankly, never done this before. And it seemed to me that, and maybe that's on us to have a little more discussion, was that I felt like that came on us so quickly, the QT, right? Mm-hmm. We're in the midst of trying to redo the planning plan, and, you can't control time periods, right? Things come up when they come up.
Yeah.
But it just seemed to me that there just wasn't quite enough time to let it ruminate on me, right, as to what to do. So I don't know. I guess my question is almost rhetorical. I mean, is there a way we could have handled that better, where we could have had a little more time to deal with it, or not? Or is that just the way it goes sometimes, I guess?
You probably answered your own question right there, but what I'm going to do, Jesse, is I'm going to take that as an action item for me and the staff to go, hey, because I thought it was really quick too. No pun intended with QT there, but it was quick. So, and these are such an important decision and affects the lives of so many people that you're absolutely right. And I'll take that for action, and we'll talk about that. Thank you. Great feedback.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
If I might, though, and yeah, I know you're going to discuss it with staff, but when Marissa says the agenda is available and all the packet information is available, it's several days before the meeting. And the minute I get that notice, because I don't want to have to print out myself with, all this stuff, I come running up here and getting it. Everybody's information is still sitting there. I came up this morning to get Bryce's information. Pretty much everybody's packet was still sitting there. Granted, you should be able to also look at it online, but there's some things that we can do to have a little more time to digest or to, ruminate on what's going to be presented at any meeting. So again, and I appreciate the fact that you're cutting us some slack, and that, because we are volunteers and we all have lives and things outside the commission, but there are things that we can make adjustments to so that we have more time to digest what's going to be on the agenda. Thank you, though, for...
You're an outstanding chairman. Don't want to disappoint.
I would only say that there was a lot of rumor for a long time before we got anything official on it, right? That's all I'm saying was there a point that we could have had more discussion, to have thought about it a little bit more, discussed it a little bit more amongst ourselves, I guess, was what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's hard when you get to the Open Meetings Act. That's why you guys get paid the big bucks, right?
And that's where my
Super big
naivete of this process comes into play, right? So thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate the clarification. It cleared up some things in my mind. And like I said, during the citizen comment period, having been on the commission for a while and been before city council in the past, I know which way you guys are going to lean, one way or the other for the most part. I was taken aback because it was so many of them were 5-0, 5-0, and 4-1. I thought it wasn't fair to us that our tallies were also saying, we had a lot of 3-2s, and they could have went either way.
Sure.
Just one vote
And they
either
did.
way.
Yeah.
And that didn't come across clear. And I had heard from citizens that it was a done deal with city council, number one, and it was that it was all we do is rubber stamp whatever comes before us, and it's not like that. And I know I personally wasn't kicking the can down the road to city council to make the decision. I read the stuff, and quite a few times, and it was ready for it because it had been advertised. And then I just need some clarification about which way I was going wrong. And so I was just surprised because I said, well, geez, I looked at it a whole different way. But I appreciate you coming and explaining it to me, and the explanation will be taken under advisement.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Todd? I can tell you have something to say.
Excuse me. What I want to say is, I was real impressed with your leadership during the meeting and your, I'm going to say 6 to 8 to 10. I couldn't tell you how long it was. It was a real nice presentation you gave about what was important, what I feel was important to the city. It was backed up well, using the master use plan, and it really set the stage for what went on for the rest of the meeting, or the rest of the discussion and the voting. And I just wanted to say it was just really thought out and really well said, and I
Sir,
appreciate
thank you.
that.
I appreciate the feedback. Thanks, Todd. Corinne?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate your comments, and I feel like I probably could have done a little bit better job presenting, but maybe giving a little bit more background information as far as maybe how our votes went, because I didn't think about that, because like Dr. Miller mentioned, it could have gone the other way. But I appreciate your feedback, and we will definitely take that.
And nothing was meant towards you?
No,
You know that,
absolutely.
right? Okay.
No, I understand.
Good. Yes, sir, thanks.
Thank you.
Karen?
One more, I have one more thing. I was impressed by the way you handled it, but it was what I expected. Given your background in the military, and also what I expected, having been on city council before. So I was not surprised. And when I talk about sizing people up on the, what's called, I knew how you would respond. I just didn't know how the rest of council would respond
Yes, sir.
down the line, okay? So don't misunderstand that. You did exactly what I expected.
Okay.
The mayor, with your background, to do.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
I'm done.
I've spoken
I'm just
enough.
glad I wasn't there.
Thanks for your time tonight. Thanks for what you guys do. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thanks for what you do.
Moving on to item 5C, Master Development Plan for Wmmt Ventures, Phase 1 project, located on a 14.0836 acre tract on the south side of FM 2252 at the intersection of Airwood Place in Garden Ridge, Texas. So, Commissioners, you had the rendition of the Phase 1 project, and then some additional information. The letter also, which I'm having trouble placing my hands on right at the moment, but you had all that information in the packet. So, I know Sean is here, and you are one of the architects, or the architect for this plan. Do you want to say anything to the commission before we open it up to questions or comments? Or both of you, or whatever? Thank you.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Shane Clark. I'm with Inc. Civil. I'm representing the owner as the engineer on this project. And what you have in front of you today is the Phase 1 of what will eventually be a multi-phase development that essentially amounts to a 20,000 square foot office building. The individual that we're working for here is a member of the community. He currently runs a business that, for lack of a better explanation, needs more space. So he had purchased his property a while back with plans of developing it one day. His current office needs have kind of put this office kind of on a fast track for him. He's running out of space. In your packet, you'll find what we came up with entitled as a Phase 2 layout. And what that amounts to is more of a density check. As he was determining whether it was going to be worth it to build out his office here and execute his plans to develop in the future, he wanted an idea of what could I fit here in the future. So that's what you have in front of you. I would say the chances of it looking like that are slim to none. What you've got is basically an exercise that we run to kind of maximize the density. There's a lot of retail that frankly, I don't know if Garden Ridge would support at this time, but retail is going to have a higher parking requirement and hence lower your yield on what you can get in terms of square footage. So that's why that's in the packet. That's the methodology that we use to kind of come up with it. You'll see some planning items that are pretty important that are going to need to be fleshed out before phase 2 that frankly are going to take some time. The text dot component, obviously there's some drainage detail that's going to be incorporated in phase 2. But what we're looking to do today is get him in a position where he can move forward with what's going to serve his immediate needs and kind of lower his current stress, and that is his 20,000 square foot office building. So that's the intent of this approval. We're here to answer any questions that you may have. Please understand what we may be able to answer on phase 2 will be limited, but just wanted to give you kind of a background on why that's included and what the intent of that was. So I'll open it up to Sean if he wants to discuss anything related to the architecture. If you got any questions related to the layout, utility requirements, some of the kind of engineering backbone stuff, I'm happy to answer those questions as well.
My name is Sean Willis. I'm with Aquifer Architecture. We are the architect for the project. The proposed rendering that you're looking at here is the proposed elevation building itself. We've actually developed floor plans for the owner. It's a 2-story office building of about a little over 20,000 square feet right now. He wanted a building to fit his needs. He wanted something that kind of made a statement. His goals were to have an office building that appeared open. So he wanted a lot of glass so he could see through the building, throughout the building. He wanted to bring the outside in. He's made some public spaces that can be used by the city. It can be used for events or whatever. We have the front porch there with an open space. It's a rather large space with a little lawn area. We also have a large training area in the building that can be used as an event space also. It's part of his business functions that he'll utilize, but could also be used as a community space too. He wanted this building to be the focal point of the tract, and as you can see on the phase 2 plan, it is at the entry. It's behind the main entry off of 2252, so that you have that main parkway coming aligned with Airwood Place there that will be focused on the main entry of the building.
Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions for either Shane or Sean? Did I get that right, Shane?
Shane?
Okay.
No,
I'm sorry.
go ahead. Oh, thank you so much. Very impressive rendering of the building. It's going to be very impressive. But I do have a couple of questions. The impervious cover, I know it still kind of will change a little bit once plans get finalized. The impervious cover is proposed right now at 13.6. That's correct?
That's correct.
Okay. With that, I was trying to see in the backup, in the phase 2, I know that is really out, thinking far ahead out in the future. What is that proposed impervious cover? Have you done that kind of calculation?
We're estimating that impervious cover to be about 70% right now. But again, it's
Right.
very fluid. So
Okay. My last question, I'll leave for my other commissioners. I see your entrance is going to be off of Dwyer Lane. That road is not in a very good shape. And there's nothing being proposed as far as improving that road as part of your development?
I'll let Shane answer that. That's a civil question.
Yes, so to start with why we're coming off of their lane there, basically, we approached TxDOT early on to see what the options were off of 2252. And we understand that they've got some big improvements coming. And what you see in the phase 2 layout is ultimately what their recommendation was. And long story short, it's gonna take some time to get that coordination done.
Okay.
And so we needed a secondary access point, both for fire code in this case and just future circulation, getting to this office building ahead of TxDOT's schedule. Currently, there are no plans to improve their lane as part of this project.
Okay, I was just, sorry about that. Just that the condition of that road with the railroad track, and there's a lot of heavy, you know, because of the industrial side of Schertz, you get a lot of crossings through there. I know the city's trying to limit that, but just that road is really getting beat up. I'm just, you know, I guess for safety, you know, getting in and out of there is, because it's only a 2-lane. Didn't know if there's any, a TIA that's, I know this office building's not gonna have that, that volume, but I guess, moving forward, any improvement on Doyer Lane to like propose a left turn lane, a dedicated left turn lane to, you know, for any kind of, just because of the industrial site there, especially some of the traffic that goes through there.
Those will certainly be some things that we need to look at as we start planning for phase 2, as that starts to become more of a reality.
Or reality.
Oh, sorry, is this? There you go. Yeah. That's certainly part of what we will look to in the future. This, as you noted, this project wouldn't trigger your typical TIA phase 1 requirements. Phase 2 most certainly will. So as we start moving into the planning phase for that, that'll be a component that, you know, whether it's left turn lanes, right turn lanes, decelerate, whatever that looks like, the study will kind of help us point in the correct direction there to best serve the development.
Thank you.
Sean, refresh my memory. Maybe it's a senior moment on my part or something, but this isn't the same orientation of the building we had before, is it? I thought it was at towards the corner. Looking at the meeting we had in March, when we asked a lot of questions about drive-through, et cetera, et cetera. Is that different, or you guys changed your plan, or what?
Yes, the original proposed site plan when we did the variant, or not the variance,
Okay.
the zoning change, we had the building in the corner of the property.
Okay.
And since then, we've looked at different options of how to lay the site out best, circulation, leasability, being able to develop, leaving our options open for phase 2. And it come down when TxDOT really told us to align our driveway to Arrowwood Place. It really kind of drove us in one direction on how we wanted to lay out the site. And he wanted his building to be at the end of that drive to be kind of the focal point of the development. So that's why it got shifted.
The other thing, I can't tell number of parking spaces that you anticipate, but I do know when I go down 2252, oftentimes I see a lot of cars parked on the lawns and dirt around some building over there. I'm not sure exactly what building it is, but I'm wondering if we made it, if you factored that in on your plan to have more parking. So obviously there isn't enough now, but I want to make sure you guys are considering enough in the future. I don't know who to direct the next comments to, other than the city and the city administrator, I guess. If this development goes forward, are plans being made within the city to improve Door Lane? Because traffic is going to go up significantly, and when it does, those big trucks are going to come through there that much more. And if that stretch of street belongs to Garden Ridge, that means we have to resurface it, do we not?
Dewar Lane does, that stretch of Dewar Lane, yes, from the tracks up to Nacogdoches Loop, does belong to the city. There should not be any through truck traffic. There is warning, traffic control signs there saying no through truck traffic, but they still go through there. They are what is tearing up the roadway. And no, the city does not have any immediate plans to repair Dewar Lane. We try to keep it as patched as possible. Keeping a roadway in good condition with that type of traffic going across it is very difficult. But at this time, we do not have any plans on redoing Dewar Lane.
That's all I have at this time.
Anyone else?
Going back to the industrial site with the 18-wheelers or heavy traffic going through there, are you going to do anything to limit the possibility of those heavy trucks, like potentially going in there, like taking a little break or rest stop, or you know what I mean, like going in there and doing a little? Is there going to be some kind of signage, or not signage, but something to deter them from potentially going in there?
I mean, I would certainly think, at least early on, being that the developer of this parcel is going to be officing in this location, I think he's going to have a pretty high incentive to make sure that that doesn't occur. I think it'll be a civil matter that he'll have to address if it happens to be an issue. As far as signage, no plans for it now, but I'm sure if it were to become a problem, it may be something he would consider.
That's my concern with them going in there and, potentially after hours, or, possibly going in there for a break, or, such a long drive there that, they could just get in there. I know that's going to be a type of an enforcement
Sure.
on the city's part and on the property owners. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I have,
I did have some more.
okay,
Okay, came back to, I'm sorry, Ken.
that's fine.
I'm on record as being not against offices, but to having an office park. And your initial statement when you came up here, Shane, said something about the community being able to afford or support retail. And I personally agree with you. But we have these grandiose ideas, and in the future, let's not talk about, you don't think it's going to, let us infer that ourselves, if you will. Because the tax base that we're trying to get to eventually, we're going to need some retail. And my big thing is if all 8 of these buildings, or however many it turns out to be, all end up being offices, the look we'll have is a mini medical center look, office building after office building after office building. And I don't think that's what Garden Ridge wants either. So when you, Sean, you've been here before, you sat on the commission. When you size this commission up, you can put down my vote in the no column for offices.
However, if this is zoned where they can, then we cannot prohibit offices. But I do like the way the offices are set to the back, okay, so that's, and depending on what, what type of offices they are, I don't necessarily think that they're going to cause a lot of traffic, like I said, necessarily. That all depends. One thing I do see in the, I like where Wes's office is situated, and when I understand that coming in from Door Lane is only temporary, because the main entrance, as you said, that's going to be the focal point, and coming in off of 2252 across from Arrowwood. And your biggest problem, I think, in doing Phase 1 is going to be Door Lane right there, coming off Nacogdoches Loop, is so narrow. I mean, barely 2 lanes, and in fact, you kind of have to scoot over, because I tend to use Door Lane quite a bit coming off of Lookout, you know, and then turning off to Door Lane versus getting on 3009, and that's why I know it is very narrow. And so that's something you guys are going to have to, you know, work with. But I would imagine, while Mr. Cleckley needs more office space, I don't see his employees or something just tripling, so that they're going to have you're going to have a lot of traffic going through there. But once you put in the other office buildings, you know, that could change. But hopefully there would be some going for in the future. There would be some relief coming in off 2252 to get into the property. I do have, okay, now I thought, Shane, that I thought I heard you say that this was merely just an initial rendering of what the building could be, or was that you, Sean? I don't remember which one said it. And I understand that he's looking for bringing in the ambiance of the outside with a lot of glass and all, but this rendering, just to give you food for thought, looks a lot futuristic for Garden Ridge, okay? Now, I don't know if these are bricks or what. I am thinking that to have this the showcase building, is there, just throwing this out there, is there a way to, with the glass and all, to have more of a stone, hill country stone or something? I'm envisioning what's out at La Cantera and those office buildings, fabulous. How they've pulled in hill country to the big offices that they have out there. So just food for thought.
We can look at different materials.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have floor plans already developed, so the form is kind of set, but we can look at different materials for the outside.
For the outside, yeah.
Try to bring in some of that.
Right, right. Go over to La Cantera, just behind the mall, and the office building there are just pulled in hill country.
But
Amazing.
I will say that the owner does want to create his own statement. He doesn't want to be like everything else also.
Sure.
So, you know,
Sure.
there is.
Sure, but just kind of throwing that out there. And I had a question looking at the picture that's up right here. Okay, so I don't know how far in the building is planning to be from the railroad tracks, but it appears that there's some green belt behind it. Is that?
Well, there's a parking lot in the back of the building also. But-
Okay.
And then there's a 30-foot easement for where the sewer is.
Okay,
So the rendering's not exactly.
Okay.
I mean, the buildings are still back there. We just didn't model all the buildings.
right,
to show them.
right. Okay, and so really, because you're going to be on sewer, how do I say this? Impervious cover, I think I'm looking at you, Bryce, with what you were coming up with that we'll discuss later. But I like the overall feel. I've just thrown out some comments on, is it possible to go away from brick and use something more hill country, limestone, whatever, I don't know, but just as a talking point with Mr. Cleckley.
Okay.
And, but I think that's all I had for this phase. Anyone else?
Yes. I really am the newest person on the block. Tell me how you come up with the 13% impervious cover, because it looks like there's a whole lot of concrete out there that is impervious, and I don't understand how that works, because it looks like maybe you have 13% that actually is pervious and all the rest of it isn't.
So the calculations you see in front of you on phase one are, there you go, are the impervious cover as compared to the entire 14-acre site. So as Sean mentioned earlier, the target for ultimate development will be in that 70% range. But as we're just looking at the impervious cover percentage today in phase one, we're looking at just over 13%.
So remember,
So it's just a comparison of
yes.
the entire, exactly right.
So this is one lot, so it's one plat, will be one platted property. So we're looking at it as a whole with just phase one. And to
Chair.
address Dr. Biller's comments about the parking, I believe on phase one, we have planned for 110 spaces for Mr. Cleckley's building, which I think his employee count will be around 50. So he has a lot of extra spaces there for when he does have those events. So.
Chair? I do have one other question. Any LID features on this phase one?
I'm sorry?
LID features, low impact development?
I mean, the LID features that we'll try to harness throughout the entire development eventually will just be reduction of impervious cover as much as we can.
Okay.
As much as reasonable with the landscaping and the buffers around the building.
Okay. Yeah, I know there's different features out there, you know, rain gardens, rain harvesting, pavers, and, you know, and for the parking. I was just wondering. Thank you.
To be honest, we haven't really got to that level of detail yet, so.
I figure you're not at that level. I was just curious. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so. Just turn it off. Even though they gave us renditions for the whole acreage, what we're looking at today, and I guess looking to see what we're going to recommend sending to City Council is on phase one. Am I correct? Okay. So, where do we want to go with that?
I make a motion to approve phase one of WMT Ventures Phase One project located on the 14.0836 acre tract on the south side of FM 2252 at the intersection of Airwood Place in Garden Ridge, Texas.
Go ahead, you seconded, okay. I do have a question for Nancy. So we are looking at pushing forward approval of Phase One project to City Council. But in doing that, though, I'm just hoping that you are taking into account the comments that have been made, because even if we, you know, move it forward, City Council could come back at you, and they're the decision makers, to say, you know, you need to look at this, you need to look at that, and so I just wanted to throw that out there, okay? So we have a motion and a second to approve Phase One of WMMT Ventures project. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, that means none opposed, right? Because everybody voted to approve. Okay, so thank you very much for your time and your indulgence, if you will. Appreciate you both being here. Thank you. Okay. Moving on, now we get to the Section D, which is the draft zoning ordinance and the master land use plan. And Bryce, you're on deck, I guess, or you're up to bat.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to see you all again. Glad we didn't make it to early vacation yet and hit the ski slopes or something. Attorney Trevino and I have been working on making some edits and revisions and some suggestions on the draft zoning ordinance. Here a couple months ago, gave some commentary, got a lot of really good input, made some tweaks, especially to a couple of zoning districts based on that input to kind of help see if we can't flesh this out to be the best that it can be the first go around. So I just want to first kind of go over a couple of the changes, a couple of the concepts, and then I'm here to answer questions or bounce ideas off of whatever you need from me. So the first thing that I want everybody to keep in mind as we kind of go through these is that a lot of these things, there are three basic types of changes that we looked at making. A couple of them were legal, and Cynthia caught those, corrected those, so you'll see a lot of the legal language is sufficient kind of comments on there. We also caught a number of things that seemed not to have complete closed loops where we had like, oh, you can get a waiver to this, but didn't say where the waiver went to or that it could be approved by somebody, so we wanted to close a couple of those. And along those lines also I made some suggestions and changes to how certain things are regulated to get you the exact same thing you want regulated, just in an easier way for staff to be able to process and deal with and review and then enforce. And then lastly, there were a couple policy items. And on those policy items, there's not a right or wrong answer. Don't take my opinion as gospel at all. I'm happy to tell you how I got there. But really all of these things, as you all probably know, are decisions on a continuum, right? We've got the extremes of regulate or not regulate, and then this huge open area in the middle, and y'all are tasked to say, this is where our community falls on this item, somewhere in this continuum. And that decision will not always be the same. It'll change over time. So that's always an okay thing. And so with that, I also want to comment that when the best development regulations that we can ever come up with are living regulations. And I use that term to say the code of ordinances that you have, and especially development regulations, are always going to be changing. So we're always looking and we're learning from how the market shifts and the development styles that are coming in, what the community needs are, as well as what interests you have in development, and what developers are coming to you saying, hey, these are things I want to build, and what the community's response to is on that. And so we have to be flexible enough in our code that we're not broken every time somebody comes in, but yet strict enough so that we're upholding the community ideals. And that's a real hard thing that's super vague and ambiguous, and I don't envy the position y'all are in to make those decisions. And so, along with those living regulations, realize that once whatever is adopted and whatever the commission ultimately decides to recommend to city council, and then ultimately what city council chooses to adopt, it's not a one bite at the apple and we're done, right? Your job is just beginning, unfortunately. It's always ongoing. You're tasked with reviewing these things and making proposals up to city council and working with staff to refine these to make them even better as we go. And so with that, as I talked a lot about last time, one of the approaches that I have towards development regulations is to understand what we're trying to regulate and make sure that that regulation is not so rigid that we keep out a lot of local development, which again, as we talked about last time, starts off typically incremental. I've got a little bit of money, I can start a little bit of building, but slowly gets bigger and bigger, and those are oftentimes lead to the pillars of the community and the businesses that that you've been, so-and-so's been here for 30, 40, 50 years, so on. Those businesses that we have around town. And so we oftentimes try to create a lot of really rigid regulations to keep out bad development of those things that got through the cracks, that left a bad taste in our mouth. Unfortunately, they often are double-sided, and while they definitely keep some bad development out, they also keep a lot of that local development down as well. And so again, this is finding that happy medium and really feeling where that is. We also softened some language throughout the code in a couple places to address some of the public comments as well, where a couple shalls were changed to may, where we're trying to encourage intent in specific development styles, but not necessarily drawing a hard line and requiring them. Along those lines, if we want to jump down to the section, well, actually, I'll just talk about it. I think y'all are probably familiar with it. One of the bigger policy pieces that I proposed was to remove color regulations. And so just to not regulate specific colors into the earth tones, et cetera. Again, it's totally a policy decision, and I rely on y'all to know what works best for the community and what you want to look at. The concern that I would have, again, if we're too hard on this, is that we may get homogeneous development patterns where we get a lot of things that look identical and the same, and where you don't really see where one thing stops and another thing begins. But again, with that, I'll just say we can leave it. It can stay, it can go. This is completely a policy decision on the city's part. And I don't know that, if you want to leave it, it's fine as it is. It doesn't really need to be tweaked. It's just the entire concept as a whole, however you all want to weigh in on that or not. The other one, if you'll go to page 50, is lot dimensions chart. I looked into a lot of this one after a lot of conversation that we had at our last meeting, and as well as some guidance that the city administration gave me. And on this one, there's a couple different pieces that I want to go over. The big concept is that we are regulating or proposing to regulate both building maximum coverage and maximum impervious coverage. And I would recommend that we pick one or the other, because ultimately they kind of lead together, right? So we have a building requirement where we're limiting the size of buildings through height, as well as impervious coverage, as well as parking requirements, right? So we have to have parking lots to go with our buildings, which all of that adds together to create this fun piece of impervious cover. I'd encourage you to stick with impervious cover over building coverage, and really think about what you want the impervious coverage rates to be in each district, because that will play a lot into what that built environment looks like. I think y'all just kind of saw in the last presentation, hey, how do you want to handle those pieces? How do you want it to look? With regard to impervious coverage specifically, I'd also have you look at the community commercial through heavy industrial and consider higher rates. And I say that not because you necessarily want things that are super dense, but what happens is we end up with land that's just unused. And so when we look at that, let's say in heavy industrial, light industrial district, and I know those are very small sections of town, kind of off on the edges that are already somewhat established in that regard, but this 50% that can't be impervious, what do you want it to be? So if we're deeming impervious coverage basically to be buildings, parking areas, storage areas, right? Any place that you can put a vehicle pretty much is going to come as impervious cover. What do you want that other 50% to be? And so it could be buffer, it could be a lot of things, but that's just a decision to be made, knowing that you're probably going to run into some funny things, or definitely some requests for increases on impervious coverage, just because of that valuation, what the land costs, and it pretty much not being used. To that same regard, don't think you should go necessarily above 80%, because you really start to pinch in on different styles of development that may need that, such as certain vertical mixed use, if you're going for dense products, need much higher impervious coverage, but they also come with different benefits. And so again, it's that kind of trade-off. All the numbers kind of at the end of the day are arbitrary at one level or another. I can always give you defense for where we get to different levels. 80% is a pretty industry standard across the board, especially for industrial and heavier duty commercial. But again, it may not be the right number for Garden Ridge. The next one, if we'll scroll down to, I think it's probably like page 70 or 80, with the natural feature overlay district. This is the other big section that I proposed some policy changes and some other pieces. So we've got this great natural feature overlay district that's designed to be along 3009 and 2252. It originally came pretty heavy-handed with a lot of requirements that were mandatory. And this is going to be one of those districts that if we want to use this district, we definitely need to do city-initiated rezoning, because you're not going to get people necessarily voluntarily coming in to say, hey, rezone that district on me and make, add more standards to my land. However, how we reworked it was intended to provide flexibility. So one of the first pieces that we did is we made a little bit of tweakage to the tree requirements in this big buffer that's up front, right? We've got a 40 or 60-foot buffer that's required by the district. And inside of that buffer, the original requirement was to preserve all protected or heritage trees. We said, hey, let's peel that back a little bit to about 80%. That gives you a clear majority of them. It allows for a little bit of flexibility for people who have incredibly densely wooded areas to have driveways that go through or some other pieces, thin out and cull some of the bad trees. Unfortunately, not all trees are created equal, and we can have protected and heritage trees that look like the Charlie Brown Christmas tree. I've got pictures back in the office of all kinds of things because I'm a huge tree lover and nature lover, and that's a real important one for me, is that we preserve a lot of those things. But again, not all are created equal. And so that'll help give a little bit of flexibility. The next big change in that is that we also added the ability for alternative landscaping and buffering compliance. And so this is a bit more of a, hey, I've got this great idea. The community's going to love it. Council's going to love it. P&Z is going to love it. It is totally in the spirit and intent. It just doesn't meet all of the requirements perfectly. And so what we've done is we've written in the ability for an applicant to request this, and also given the commission and city council some criteria to help consider in making that decision. I heard that was an item earlier in discussion was, hey, how do we make some of these decisions? What are some of the criteria that we use? I'm a big proponent of always, anytime we have discretionary decision making, saying, how are we basing this decision? What do we want to make that on? And so I've proposed some various criteria that I feel is appropriate here, where we're talking about alternatives not reducing a standard unless it's enforced to the greatest extent possible. Also providing that the alternative preserves and enhances the quality of the existing landscaping. So it's, hey, yeah, you're taking out more trees than maybe the 80% allows, but the trees you're taking out are ugly trees, right? They're not the pretty ones. You're culling these trees so that these humongous oak trees and these grand, generational trees that exist in the town are preserved and enhanced, and their beauty's enhanced by, culling some of the saplings, culling some of the smaller trees that may now be in that protected zone, but are definitely not adding to that overall canopy and that overall impact. Also that it's the proposals in compliance with the city's policies and recommendations, including a comprehensive plan, to really help provide some of that structure and backbone to say, yeah, you don't meet the ordinance exactly, but you really captured the spirit, you've really gone above and beyond, you've really planned this out and thought it out, put the effort in, and not just showed up saying, hey, P&Z and City Council, these requirements just don't work for me. I want to do the same thing I've done in every other city. Please approve this. I've given you more than enough ammunition here to say, that does not meet what is Garden Ridge. We're going to deny it. And so, with that, those are most of the major changes. I'm happy to answer any specific questions or provide any guidance or anything else that you may have.
I feel like most of the commissioners are at a not really a loss, but to look at this kind of information, we typically looked at in a technical meeting, because we were able to then, take each piece and discuss it and see what the various thoughts were. And I would say at least 4 out of the 6 of us have never done that and have never been part of a technical group to understand that that's, what we do. But, and it's after all that discussion with some individuals that have served on the commission for a while, and a couple of our city council members also being part of the technical group as well as staff. And so I have a feeling that they're a little bit, you're probably a little bit not sure what to do here. Nancy, how do we approach this? Because I don't see us taking this to city council. This is a piece. And we're going to look at it, before we take something to city council, we're looking at the entire ordinance. And these are bits and pieces and sections that we need to look at and mull over. So how would you suggest we approach that?
You are correct. These are just sections that really related to some comments that were received at the public hearing that the commission held on Ordinance 13, the proposed Ordinance 13. We wanted to bring these forward to the commission to let them know where we are in the process, what the comments are. Tonight, I don't believe anyone has had enough time to even read this and digest any of it. So tonight, I would not recommend the commission making any kind of recommendation until there has been time to digest it. If there is a desire by the commission for the technical committee to review these changes and then bring our discussions back to the commission, we can do that. Or if you would like for the commission to discuss these changes or these proposed changes, recommendations at your January meeting, that can also be accomplished, Chairman. I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Yes. So if I look at the commission and say, do you want, I've heard different things. Okay, I've heard comments before in previous meetings about, well, only certain people are on the technical group, and so the others don't weigh in. But when you get too big of a group, you're all over the map. As it is, the technical committee, which is much smaller, sometimes we're going back and forth and discussing, but I think we've been very, I think we got pretty good at doing this because we listen to what other people have and as comments, and then decide. For the commission to do this, we're going to have to take, just like we do in the tech, page by page by page, and go over this. And actually, you're going to need to, because Bryce has, page 26, page 78, page 90. So you have to look at it in the context of the other pages that go with these sections. So I'm opening it up just to get some feeling from the commission as to how you would like to proceed with this. Give it to the technical committee to discuss, and then bring back to you guys the overall, a sentiment or decisions by the technical committee. So, anybody?
I'm prejudiced because in the past I had been on the technical committee. But to me, the formation of the technical committee and the meetings we already have is money already spent. And I don't want to deviate from that now. I'd rather go the way we've gone in the past with the technical committee getting the first shot at everything, especially in light of the fact that I didn't read my email until yesterday, I think it was. I don't know when everybody else got the information. Yeah, okay.
I got mine this morning.
Yeah, so I read it as best I could and tried to put it together, and I said, no, I need more time. So my opinion is both. The technical committee should take a look at it. Hopefully, I know it's hard now because here it is, what, the 14th or whatever, December, and our meeting in January is like the second Tuesday, which is like the second week in January. And yeah, 11th, I don't know if that's enough time for the technical committee to meet and us consider it and for us to consider it in the January meeting. That's my only concern.
I read this morning. I went through, and my first impression was that there was a lot of changing happy to glad in there. I mean, it was good. I thought your comments were good. I don't know how much time we need to spend on this. At some point, we're going to have to send it for approval before I die, you know? It's just taking, and, you know, maybe we could, I don't know, speed it up somehow.
Well, I think then that the technical committee is the one to go through this and interject it with the other pages that, you know, fit with the ones he's called out here, and then bring it to the commission to say, this is kind of where we are. Because this would take one meeting, I would think, wouldn't you? It might take 5 hours, but.
Oh, technical committee?
Yeah, the
Yeah, I believe the technical committee can go through this in
Yeah,
one meeting.
right.
Yes, very definitely.
Right.
Other question, where did the 40 feet come from? This is just for trees apart. There isn't an oak tree that you'll buy that doesn't say plant 60 feet apart.
Oh, yeah.
So why are we putting them closer together?
The mandatory plantings, I think that was something that was already in there.
Yeah.
Is that just something?
Yeah, so,
was
you know, and so they get staggered, and a lot of what happened on this as well, when you have a great commercial site that has planted the required trees, and you get that site that actually waters them and maintains them and prunes them and makes them look really gorgeous as they grow, they'll end up culling a few of them, because you do have that, especially with some of the
There
big
actually is
oaks.
a program that can show you planting stuff and make it grow so you can see how badly you did.
Yeah. And part of the issue is you interject additional plantings so that it deals with the early years, the first 10, 15 years of that tree's life, which it's going to look pretty small and takes a long time before they become lovely and grand. And so it allows it to not look like you have a incredibly sparsely landscaped lot, knowing that those big shade trees will take a couple decades to really mature and become those great spectacles that we love.
My question then to city administrator, we have looking around the room, we have the technical committee here tonight, except for the city attorney. Is it unrealistic for me to expect to have it back to us in January, or is it more realistic to expect it to have it back in February? That's what I'm asking.
No. Marissa and I had kind of already started looking at the calendar for December and January. And here we are upon, next week is basically the start of the Christmas week. I don't know we have no idea what the commission's availability, or the technical committee members' availability was going to be. We do have several conflicts at the beginning of January due to some scheduled training for city staff. We can see what we can schedule for a technical committee meeting. If we cannot accomplish that by our January Planning and Zoning Commission, perhaps we can have a special meeting prior to our February, that meeting that possibly could be an option, or having it back to you definitely in February.
Yeah, I was picking up on what you're saying. I would like to see what we can do depending on schedules, in the next couple of weeks. And then if we just can't, because there's so much going on, then we present it in February. So they just need to get our schedule, say, when are you available? I'm available this date, this date, this date, but then the whole committee has to do that, so. And also, city staff has to have the time, so. Okay, so at this point then, I think we'll table this and push it over to the technical committee and see what we can pull together. Is
We
that
will-
doable?
Yes, we will look at some dates and get some emails out to the technical committee and see when we can
Possibly.
pull
get
a
to-
meeting together of the committee.
All right.
And we will try our best to get it to the commission as quickly as we possibly can.
Bryce, thank you so much for your
Thank you.
comments and your insight into this and the discussion you had before this, coming to us. So you've got a lot of good sidebar comments that make sense, and also, thank you. We very much appreciate it. Because the last thing we wanted to do was put something in an ordinance that was going to hinder us being able to attract what we wanted to, and, that was a discussion we had a couple of months ago. It's like, what do you want? Oh, well, then you're not going to get that with this.
Yeah, and it's a real hard one, and just remember, kind of at the end of the day, the best that we'll do is what we can get done, on this piece right now, insofar as it will never be perfect. It's not gonna catch every possible exception, probably realistically, just knowing the luck that happens in development. The day after it's approved, staff will get one of those exceptions that comes in, and it's just the nature of development. So I appreciate it, and it's, in seeing the different iterations, I can tell that y'all put a lot of work into this, and that the community will benefit greatly from all the hours you put in.
We are hopeful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your help. I had some comments about how the new 210 was reading, and I had some angst about it as well. So I just kind of wanted to throw this out to the commission. While I believe that there were a couple of items that were taken out, or at least one that was really good, I understand, because I was at the city council meeting where this was discussed and voted on and changed. So let me make sure that I understand the new 210. As I was reading it, I got the impression that now 210 is in our lap, essentially, to monitor or to decide on when somebody has met excessive absences or whatever. It's up to us, the commission, okay? That caused me some angst, because if you look at the third whereas on the first page, it says, the city council has determined that a policy is needed to establish uniform standards and operating procedures for boards and commissions. My concern is if we leave this wide open, I do not want us to get in a situation, and why I want to discuss it now is because we don't have anybody in a situation that, could be at jeopardy. I personally do not want to wait until we get to that situation. So what I'm looking at from the, it says discuss and make recommendations. I'm asking the commission to think about, I'm so glad we threw out the 3 in a row. That had to go. But we need to look at what do we believe is a good standard for P&Z on total absences now versus when somebody gets in a situation. I don't want to have a person, sitting here like this because they're in a situation, and then have the commission try to decide, well, do we give them one more? Or, okay, you get 5 and you get 2. No, we cannot have that. We have to have a standard. based on my HR experience. So, does anybody have any comments with regard to that? As far as what is a good standard for planning and zoning as far as absences based on a year? 12 meetings in a year. Any comments?
My first question is that something that we should discuss internally? Are you proposing we do that tonight?
Yes.
Okay. And then the second thing is, going forward, how do we track that? I mean, I'm not gonna say, oh, Colonel Leatherberry was here when he wasn't here in February. Okay. It's easy. Myself too. But I don't want us to get into a tracking type thing, just like Melissa and them.
Well, you
got
have
away
to
from
in a
it.
way. You have to, okay? Because whether or not we actually set a standard or not, at some point, somebody's going to be absent 5 times, and we're going to have to figure out a way to know that's 5 times. And I don't think every commission is the same, and I don't think it's maybe, obviously, with, Corey only having 6 meetings, and we have 12. Thank God we don't have 24 anymore. But, and you know what? If I need to track, then I'll track. Because I don't want to put any more work on you. And I realized, being at the meeting, that one of the things was to take some of the responsibility off city staff for tracking everything and all. And, but I do believe that actually we can look at the minutes to see who was here and who was not here.
That's what I was going to say, is that we didn't remove all of the tracking. There's still a record of who was at what meeting, and you can go in the minutes. That's always going to be there. We'll never remove that
Right.
because that has to be in the minutes.
Right.
So that's where that tracking is going to be at. In regards to setting a specific standard, like a number, we removed that because we felt like there wasn't really a magic number, because different things come up. People have different experiences at different times in their lives, and we wanted to be a little more understanding of everyone's a volunteer here, and we appreciate that. Now, the last sentence does talk about due to excessive absences that hinder the commission's ability to conduct meetings or make informed recommendations. So at that point, I think it would be pretty obvious if you have the same person that is missing and say you have a vacancy and you're not able to meet for 3 months because that one person isn't coming to meetings. I mean, I think putting a number in for just the Planning and Zoning Commission would go backwards in a sense to what we just did to this ordinance. So I'm not sure that putting a definite number in here is really the way to go. And I don't know what that number is either.
Okay, I just do not want to have, for you, it's 3 absences because of what's going on in the commission. Oh, but you can have 5 or 6. You see, I mean, there has to be some sort of guide anyway. And if you miss 6 meetings in a year out of 12 months, to me, that's something you need to look at and maybe decide, because that gives you quite a bit of latitude. 6 meetings. That wasn't what it was before. It was 4. And so I just don't want to be caught in a situation where if you miss a meeting, you never know. You could have 1 absence, but it's at a meeting that's really, really critical, and that maybe we couldn't meet because somebody was at. I just want some discussion on this. And
Going back, I can't think of too many times we didn't have a quorum.
I can. But
And I really can't. And we can talk online about what I missed. And I missed several last year.
no, it wasn't you. It was a little further back where we didn't have a quorum a couple of times.
Yeah, but you may be going too far back, Karen. Okay. And that's why
I
we
think
got.
the issue is more so we couldn't get a quorum for special meetings. That's why we added the second regular meeting
Yeah.
to lower those quorum requirements.
But there were a couple of meetings where we actually just. Yeah.
Can I ask the city secretary, was the problem with doing it the way we were doing it, was it the tracking, or was it the publication and collating the tracking on a monthly basis?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
Was the tracking, I was going to say it the same way, was the tracking the tedious part of it, or was it getting it all together, putting it on paper, putting it in color, and getting it out to each one of us? Is that what made all the work, or was it going back and looking, saying, so-and-so's absent this, didn't make it to city council, and all that kind of stuff? What part of it made the work?
I would say maintaining those sheets that y'all used to have in your packet that tracked the absences, what was the work.
Okay.
Having it to where it appears on the minutes only is something that is already required by law, and we're gonna do whether this ordinance says we have to do it or not. So whoever's in attendance tonight and who's not in attendance will always be on the minutes. Same for city council meetings. We'll have the commissioners who attended will still be on those city council minutes where we can see who is there, even though it's not a requirement that you attend them in person anymore. Those are still gonna be there and they'll be available, but that's something that we already have to do. We were doing the extra step by maintaining those spreadsheets and having to go back, who was at the city council meeting, who wasn't, and then the next year recreating it because we can't delete any records. We have to maintain those records for X amount of years. So it's just really just the tracking of the absences separate from the minutes was the work.
Then my question would be, would it be too much to ask to have city staff, and I know it's not your decision, so I'll turn this way. Is it too much to ask city staff to peruse the minutes and keep track of it, as opposed to one of us 6 or 7 up here? And the answer, I want an honest answer, because otherwise we have to go and figure out how we're going to track it. I don't want to be a snitch.
If there's any questions on what meetings commissioners have missed or attended, we will be glad to provide those answers. But I think if you run into this perhaps same commissioner or same couple of commissioners that create the situation where you're not able to have a quorum, that should tell a story right there to the commission. Or if their absences are creating a situation where you're not able to move some things forward, or do some of the work that the commission needs to do, then that right there should be some guidance on with absences and what is acceptable and what is not acceptable by the commission, rather than setting a specific number.
I didn't think that I'd ever be running for hallmonder, but I'd be happy to do this. I mean, it wouldn't be too hard. You put the names out here and you put the months out here and you put a check mark in it. And in 12 rolling months, you say that you missed 3 meetings, you missed 1 more, you're out of here. That's not real hard to do.
Right, but we don't even have to do that, okay? Because individual commissioners know how many meetings they have missed individually. I know, and so, but you can go back and track it. We can track each individually. We can track ourselves. It's in the minutes. You don't have to, and no one else has to do it. City staff doesn't have to do extra work. I just don't want it to get down to I think there should be a guide at any rate. And there could be, certain circumstances that, we have to allow for, but there should be a guide anyway. Maybe what we need to do is think about this for, till the next meeting, because I did just throw it out there as to one of the things that I thought was important. So, maybe we need to sleep on it and come back and ask what you think. I just, at the next meeting. But that's just on attendance, okay? The other thing that.
Chairman Diaz,
Yes.
Can I offer my thoughts on that really quickly? Thank you. We modified and amended the ordinance to be specifically vague so that there's not a number out there. And it's not just so that we don't have to track it every month and it's in the minutes anyway. It's so that we don't put ourselves as commissioners and as the chairman of the commission in a difficult spot with someone that has missed 4 meetings in a row for various reasons, and then they miss another one and they don't show up. So what I would propose with that is, that's again where you get the big bucks as the chairman of this commission. If someone's absences are hindering your job as a commission to do your job, then you work with the city administrator and the city secretary to come up with options. And if if it's hindering your ability to do your job, then you can talk to them, not in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. You can talk to them all that you want and say, hey, relay to the mayor that, and maybe to the council, that we're having some issues and we need to take some action. And you'll come up with a game plan as the chairman. So we would rely on your outstanding leadership in that case, and that's why it's purposefully vague. That's my input, and I thank you for that.
Do that as well. All I was trying to say was, we should treat everyone with the same respect and the same, like, say, for instance, I thought 4 was, a bit tight, but I just don't want to say, oh, again, it's 4 for you, and it's going to be 6 for you. I don't want that. I don't want to have that kind of discussion if that occurs. But we'll try it your way, see what happens for this coming year.
Can I add something?
Sure.
So another thing you say, so on the long lines of wanting to treat everyone with the same equally with respect, another reason that these proposals were made was because there is not a specific number that is set on council members. So we felt that if they don't have a specific magic number, any kind of requirement, then they shouldn't be putting other requirements, more strict requirements on the commissioners that they're appointing. So that's kind of where that logic came from as well.
Okay, we can do that. But I like what Mayor said. Let's see where we go with this. We're starting 2022, and we'll see where we go and see where it comes out. I just did not want to be in a situation which we were kind of in before. So, that's good. All right.
Chairman, I have a question then. So what we're deciding is to go with what the mayor said, or is it,
Yes.
we're going to consider it again in January?
I think he's put something out there to say, kind of roll with it right now. See if we end up, see if we end up with a problem, or something that becomes a problem. And I don't know if I mean, there's a couple of commissions that are just like, planning and zoning, the water commission and all, it's sometimes critical for those 2 commissions. But I like what he said, and so I think we're going to roll with it this time and see where we are in 2022. Okay, moving on outside of attendance. I think it's important for all the commissioners to read 210 and understand responsibilities, okay? And you need to know, you all know by now, you've been commissioners long enough to know that you are expected to, if push came to shove and the chair and the vice chair were not available, that somebody would have to step up and chair the meeting, and you have to understand what's on the agenda, understand, how to lead certain topics, but that's also something we need to be aware of. The other thing is, I don't know, if you look at the training and education, we have new commissioners. Have you guys, and I say guys because you're all guys, have you guys attended or done the, within your 2-month appointment, have you completed the Texas Open Meetings training in that item 1?
What is that?
You see? I knew you hadn't done it.
No, I read the regulate, I mean, I read the entire thing, the
Okay.
150 pages, and I thought, this is all legal speak. Is there something that's supposed to be narrowed that down a little bit?
Well, one of the things is why it's called the Texas Open Meetings Act.
Yes.
Because we cannot, amongst three of us, have a little separate little discussion going on, because then you violated. And you can't have more than three at the most council in a meeting to, to discuss and stuff, because then they, violate the act. All I'm asking is, if you haven't done the training,
Where is it?
it's, Nancy will,
If you have not done the online training of the Texas Open Meetings Act and the Public Information Act, you're required to, within 2 months of your appointment, please see Marissa or Kat, and they can give you the information. At the end of the training, you will receive a certificate that you will need to provide to the city secretary. That is required training.
And that's the first time I've heard this.
Okay, well, we will get you set up with that. Occasionally, there are some courses that are offered, typically through Alamo Area Council of Government. They will do some planning and zoning workshops, and sometimes through TML, I believe, they will also do some planning and zoning training. When those courses come available, then we will send an email out to the commissioners, and all you need to do is let us know if you would like to attend the course. Some of the courses, there is a fee, some of them there is not. So if you're interested in attending any of those types of courses, please let us know, and we will arrange or see how we can arrange for you to attend those courses.
I think the ones that we've attended over the last couple of years have all been by the Alamo Area Council of Governments, and they've all been free. And in
I believe
fact,
they
because
are.
of COVID, they actually did the last one I know of, online. So, and you just, say, I'm going to attend, they give you the link, and then you go in there and attend it. So, yeah, but see, that kind of stuff is important, and that's in 210. So, I just want to make sure that all of you are aware that that's something we also are required to do. I'm done with 210. Any other comments or questions?
Did I miss, I'm trying to read quickly now. Is there a limit of how many terms a commissioner can serve?
No.
So potentially I could serve ad nauseum.
Yes.
But not as the vice
I'm
chair.
not going to bring up, but yes, that's definitely out there.
There is limits on how long consecutively you can be in the position of chair and vice chair before you would need to give somebody else a chance, at least, or switch.
He's talking about just being on the commission. Here we go again.
I second it. Oh, excuse me,
That's fine, seconded.
were you supposed to ask, when you have a motion?
Okay,
then
we
so-
have a motion. Do we have a second? There you go.
I
Thank
second
you.
it, yes.
All right. And